Hi everyone, today we're going to be talking about the EDI agent template for Anypoint Partner Manager. This is now GA and available through Anypoint Exchange. This template aims to offer a streamlined agentic experience for some of the most common B2B use cases that our customers are encountering today. Everything from creating partner profiles to providing additional transactional level insights is provided as part of this template, and through a series of demos, we hope to illustrate some of the value that having an EDI agent can bring to your organization. With that, let's go ahead and jump into the platform. With today's first demo, we're going to be targeting one of the most common use cases that Partner Manager customers encounter, and that is onboarding new partners into their ecosystem. Luckily, through Partner Manager's intuitive UI, users can do this through a series of clicks. Let's go ahead and take a look at what that experience looks like today. I'm going to navigate to my Partners tab, and then I'm going to click on the Create Partner button along the right-hand side of the page. From here, I can begin to enter in my fictional partner information. With today's demo, we're going to be working with a fictional partner called West Coast Sports, so I'll go ahead and start typing in their name here. From the screen, I can also configure their identifier type, which in this case will be X12 ISA, with the qualifier being set to ZZ and the identifier value being W Coast. With the click of a button, my partner profile is initially created, but as we all know, the work doesn't stop there. Most trading partners exchange these specification documents, which specify all of the information that might need to be configured within Partner Manager. For this West Coast Sports example, we can see that they have multiple identifiers, some contact information that may need to be uploaded and associated with their partner account, as well as a couple of SFTP endpoints that need to be configured. Now, we can do this through the UI, but that's manually intensive and takes time. So, with the EDI agent template, we can simplify this workflow. I'm going to go ahead and delete this partner, and we'll walk through what that experience looks like together. So now that the partner is deleted, I can navigate into my VS Code environment where I have the Anypoint extension pack installed. From here, I'm going to navigate to MuleSoft Dev Agent, and I already have the EDI agent MCP server configured in my environment. Let's open up our EDI agent to see what tools are available out of the box as part of this template. When I expand the screen, we can see that we have several different tools available, such as creating partner profiles, searching for B2B transactions, retrieving information about partner profiles, creating B2B endpoints, and finally retrieving information about partner certificates. With that out of the way, we're going to jump back to our demo use case of creating a partner profile. From here, I'm going to give MuleSoft Dev Agent a simple prompt, something like, can you create the partner profile and the associated endpoints from the corresponding PDF. And the PDF that I'm referencing here is the one that we just saw earlier, which contains all of my identifier information, the contact information, and the SFTP endpoint information. From here, we're going to send the request directly to MuleSoft Dev Agent. And in just a couple of seconds, it already knows what to do. It's going to take our PDF file, extract the necessary partner information, and use that to populate the request to our EDI Dev Agent. From here, we can see that we're leveraging the Create B2B Partner Profile tool, and it's populating the request with information from the PDF. Once the partner profile has been created, it then invokes the Create B2B Endpoint tool to create the necessary configurations for the SFTP endpoints. Once the partner profile and corresponding endpoint configurations have been created, we can see that MuleSoft Dev Agent then marks the task as completed. And without having to log into Anypoint Partner Manager, our EDI agent is giving us a summary of everything that it completed. Here we can see the partner name, the identifiers, the contact information, and the endpoints that were created as part of this process. Just to make sure everything is accurate, let's jump back into Anypoint Partner Manager. I'm going to go ahead and refresh our partners list, and here we can see that the West Coast Sports partner profile was created successfully. I'm seeing all 4 of my identifiers, and their values match up with what was assigned in the PDF file. I can also see that the contact information, as well as the SFTP endpoint configurations, match up with the values that were listed in the PDF file as well. By uploading a PDF and sending a simple prompt, EDI Agent was able to help me significantly reduce the amount of time that it would take to onboard a new partner into my ecosystem. Let's move into the next phase of the demo, which will highlight EDI Agent's intelligent transaction search capabilities. Here, if I move to my activity page, we can see that I have a sample transaction. I have an $850 purchase order, followed by a purchase order acknowledgement, an advanced shipment notice, an invoice, and a payment remittance. Now, we know in the real world that these don't flow in one right after the other. So as a business user, I might want to take one of my custom message attributes, in this case a purchase order, and use that to search if an invoice was created for that particular purchase order. Luckily, EDI Agent makes that super easy. I can simply send a prompt and just say, was an invoice created for this purchase order? I'll put in the purchase order number, click send, and once again, in just a couple of seconds, EDI Agent is able to handle the request, decipher what I need as a business user, and start to populate the request. If I scroll to the top here, we can see that it's correctly invoking the EDI Agent's tool, which is the transaction search feature. So we can search for B2B transactions, and if I scroll all the way to the bottom, we see that the task is completed. It verifies that an invoice was sent for my purchase order, and then it gives me some more information about the invoice details. Now, while this information is helpful, we can start a new task and take this a step further. Let's generate a basic tabular web page that shows the entire transaction lifecycle of the purchase order that we were just looking at. Once again, we're invoking EDI Agent, and it's leveraging the Search B2B Transactions tool. Dynamically, it's creating a web page that we can see here along the right-hand side of the page. This is going to contain all of the transaction information from the purchase order to the advanced shipment notice, to the invoice, to the payment remittance, and it's going to populate it in a way that's visible to the business user. Here we can see that the task is completed, and if I run the command to open up our web page, here's what it looks like. It's a very dynamic, clear-cut view of when each step of the transaction lifecycle occurred, and it's something that could be easily shared with business users across your organization. This brings us to the last part of the demo, where we'll be using EDI Agent to look for partner certificates that are either expired or approaching their expiration date, which I might need to take action on to avoid disruption to my business. Here we send a simple prompt, and once again, in just a few seconds, EDI Agent is correctly invoking the necessary tools to pull the certificate information from my Partner Manager instance. We can see that I have one certificate that has expired, and I have several certificates that are expiring soon. At the bottom, I get a summary of what the EDI Agent has found, as well as recommended next steps that I might need to take. That wraps up the demo for today. I hope you can see how having an EDI Agent will streamline workflows across your organization, reduce manual overhead, and ultimately increase the amount of insights that your teams have access to through a modern agentic experience. This template is available on Anypoint Exchange today, and I encourage you all to try it out. Thank you. Now that the demo is completed, it's time for you to learn how to configure this within your own Anypoint instance. First and foremost, search for the EDI Agent template for Anypoint Partner Manager within Anypoint Exchange. Once you're on this page, I highly encourage you to read through each one of the sub-pages to fully understand how this template works, all of the necessary prerequisites, as well as how each of the tools functions once implemented. After you've completed this, go ahead and click on the download button, which will download a jar file. You can then import this jar file to Anypoint Studio or Anypoint Code Builder, and for this demo, we're going to be using Anypoint Code Builder. So using Command-Shift-P, I'm going to go to my Downloads folder and choose the jar file that I just downloaded. I'm then going to select the directory where I will create my project folder. In this case, I'll choose my desktop. And from here, once my folder is opened up, I can close some of these extra tabs, and I'm going to drill down into my source main Mule folder to take a look at all of the different flows and subflows that power this template. Here I can view things like how the agent is logging into my Anypoint system. I can look at how it's looking up information about some of my partners, but really we want to look at the MCP B2B Partners Tool XML because this is going to power 4 out of the 5 tools within my EDI agent. So here, if I take a look at my flow list, you can see that these are the tools that correspond to creating endpoints, creating partners, getting certificates, and getting my partner profile. The last tool is in the MCP B2B Tracking Tools XML. And this is where it's searching for transactions to help populate that intelligent transaction search that we saw earlier. The main thing that I want to highlight is that these flows are meant to be customized to your organization. In the demo that we saw earlier, I had some certificates that were expired or expiring. So maybe for me, I want to add in a Slack connector or an email connector so that I'm proactively notified when I have a certificate approaching an expiration date, which will then allow me to act on it and avoid any sort of business disruption. Now, for the purposes of this demo, I want to keep everything standard. And so all we're going to do is navigate to our config folder and then open up our configuration.yaml. There's 4 fields that we'll need to fill out here. we'll have our connected app client ID and secret, and then we'll have our Anypoint Partner Manager org ID and environment ID. Now I already have my org ID and environment handy, so I'm going to go ahead and paste those in here. And then we'll work on creating our connected app so that we have our client ID and client secret. Now I'm going to be hard coding things as part of this demo, but if you're implementing this in a production environment, I highly recommend you use things like Secure Properties or Secrets Manager, just so that you're not hard coding these sensitive values within your application directly. Let's create our connected app. So I'm going to go to Settings, Access Management, and then I'll click on Connected Apps. From here, I'll click on Create App, and I want this app to act on its own behalf. So I'll choose that radio button, and then I need to add in my necessary scopes. So I'll open up Partner Manager. I like to add in all of the scopes to make sure that my EDI agent has all the necessary permissions. And then from here, you'll select your relevant business group and associated environment. So once you've reviewed all of your configuration steps, you can go ahead and click on Add Scopes, and then you'll click on the Save button. I need to give my app a name, so I will just title this EDI agent, and then I'll click on the Save button. From here, my EDI agent connected app is created, so I can copy my client ID, paste this into my config.yaml, and then I can grab my client secret and do the same thing. Once those are pasted in, make sure to save, and then we need to update one more thing, which is our B2B tracking tools XML. This is where we're searching for transactions, so I'm going to go ahead and open up my tool listener, and under my parameter schema, you'll notice that we have an enum here. You'll notice that in the prerequisite doc, we have to make a platform API call in order for us to retrieve the custom attributes that we've defined for our partners. So let's go ahead and do that now. I first need to generate a bearer token that will allow me to authenticate with the platform API. So I'm going to take the client ID and the client secret from the connected app that I just created and paste that into Postman for this particular post request. So once I send this request, I should get a bearer token back, and I can copy this access token as part of my response. And then I can navigate to my GET request, which is listed in the prerequisite doc, and I can replace my authorization bearer token with the one that I just generated. I also need to make sure that in my request URL, I'm correctly defining the org ID and the environment ID for where my partner manager instance is configured. Let's take the response JSON and let's navigate over to DataWeave Playground. I'm going to paste this in as my payload, and I just need to make a small modification to the script where this is going to be payload.label. And here in the output, I just need to copy all of these values and navigate back over to Anypoint Code Builder. And here under my MCP tool listener for my search B2B transactions, where those enums were, I'm just going to paste in all of the custom attributes that were returned from that API call. Now from here, I'm done configuring the flows. So I just had to put in my org ID, my environment ID, and then my connected app client ID and secret, configure any custom attributes that I've defined, save, and I can export this as a deployable jar. Once I have my jar file, I'm going to navigate to the runtime manager. Here I am naming my application as EDI agent, and I'm just deploying this to a private space that I have previously set up. So from here, I'm going to navigate to the jar file that I just generated in ACB. I'll upload that here, and for the purposes of this demo, I'm going to be using an LTS runtime. I want to make sure to check Object Store v2 and last mile security to make sure that everything functions properly once this is deployed. Once I have those boxes checked, I'm going to go ahead and click on the Deploy Application button, and provided all of the configuration went well, I should have this jar file deployed here shortly. Okay, now that my application is deployed successfully, I'm going to go ahead and copy my application URL and navigate back to Anypoint Code Builder. And just for the sake of cleanliness, I'm going to close the workspace where I was previously editing the template, and I will open up the MuleSoft Dev Agent extension. Now from here, I'm going to go ahead and click on the Enable MCP Servers button, and I will click on the corresponding gear icon and the button that says Configure MCP Servers. Now I want to test that my template deployed and has the configurations that I would expect, so let's go ahead and add our server configuration. I'll title this EDI agent, and then we need to add in the type. By default, the template is configured to operate as a streamable HTTP server, and for the URL, we're going to paste in the application URL and append MCP. So the template itself is configured to operate as streamable HTTP with the MCP suffix. And you can see here that my connectivity is successful. So if I open this up, you should see all 5 tools available within your MCP EDI server. So from there, I just like to test the connectivity and make sure that it hits my partner manager instance as expected. So I'm going to send a simple prompt here like, can you give me a list of my partner profiles? And we'll go ahead and send this request. And ultimately, if everything is configured as it should be as part of the template, you'll get back just a list of your partner configurations, which we could see here that the MuleSoft dev agent is invoking our EDI agent to use the tool Get B2B Partner Profiles. So far, everything is looking good and it's working as expected. So we'll wait for this API request to complete. And ideally, this would just have a brief overview of all of our partner profiles that we've configured in the environment. So, yep, we're getting back a summary of all our partner profiles. Like I said, mainly this is just to test that the connection is valid and it's hitting the right partner manager instance. So from there, naturally, the next question we tend to get is, how can I secure this? How can I make sure that folks who should only have read-only access to my MCP EDI agent have read-only access, and folks who have full access, they can have full access. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to put a Flex Gateway on top of this. And to do that, I'm going to navigate to Anypoint Exchange here, and I'm going to publish just a new blank MCP asset. So if I come to my API tab and then I go to Exchange, we'll click on Publish New Asset. I'll give this asset a name, so we'll just call this EDI Agent Demo. Asset type will be MCP, and the platform will be MuleSoft, and then I can just click on Publish. So this is going to publish this sort of template or base asset to Exchange, which will then apply our Flex Gateway on top of. So we'll wait for the publishing to finish here. And once that is completed, we can then navigate to APIs. And then we're going to navigate to API Manager. Now it's important here that you navigate to the agent and tool instances along the left-hand side of the page. And we can add a new MCP server. Here, I already have some Flex Gateways configured in my environments, so I'm going to go ahead and select one of them. And from here, it's going to have me select my MCP server from Exchange. So this is where I would type in my EDI agent demo. This is the asset that we just published. And from here, I can just click on Next. I can give this a base path if I want to. I'm just going to type in EDI agent here and then click on Next. And the upstream URL will be the application URL that we just deployed. So in Runtime Manager, we can just jump back and look for that application that we just deployed. So in our case, this was EDI agent. We'll take the public endpoint here, and then we'll navigate back to our configuration and paste that in for the upstream URL. We'll click on Next and then Save and Deploy. So this will create a new API instance with the Flex Gateway on top of it for this asset. And from here, what I can do is I now need to update my configuration within my MuleSoft dev agent to leverage the Flex Gateway URL. So from here, I'm going to go to Runtime Manager and we'll navigate to Flex Gateways. And I'll choose the Flex Gateway that I associated that asset to. I will take the public endpoint and I will put it into my MCP configuration. Now, the thing to remember here is that this will be the base URL or the base path here, and we added in that additional EDI agent blurb as part of our base path configuration earlier in this video. So make sure to add that in. So it's the base URL or the public URL of your Flex Gateway plus whatever you defined as the base path. So in our case, this would be the EDI agent base path. Now, once you save this configuration, you should still see all 5 tools available to you. You should still have good connectivity, but now it's time to start adding in our policies. So if I go to APIs and I go to agent and tool instances in my API manager and I go to EDI agent demo, I can now begin to add policies to this particular asset or this particular instance. So let's go ahead and add an inbound policy. And what I'm going to add in here is going to be the client ID enforcement. So basically, we need to pass in a client ID and client secret with every request to this MCP server. Otherwise, it will not allow the request to go through. So I've added this inbound policy, and I want to add one more, which will be the attribute-based access control. So we're not going to configure anything with this just yet. I want to demonstrate how the first one works first, and then we'll come back and configure this one. So just add it in, but we don't have to configure any rules just yet. So click the apply button. You should now have two policies associated to this instance, the client ID enforcement and the attribute-based access control. To get our client ID and client secret for this instance, I'm going to navigate to Anypoint Exchange, and I'm going to look for that EDI demo asset that we published earlier. So here I have this EDI agent demo. I can search for that, click on it, and now we should have the ability to request access once this loads. So after this screen loads here, what we're going to do is we're going to click on the request access button. We'll select our API instance. We don't have an application defined, so I'm just going to create a new one and title this as EDI agent demo app. And I'll just click on create and request access. Here it's going to give me my client ID and client secret that we'll need to pass along with our API request to the MCP server. So if we jump back to MuleSoft Dev Agent into our configuration, we will now add in a section for headers. So that's what I'm typing in here. So we'll have headers, and we will have two fields underneath that, one for client ID and one for client secret. I'm going to go ahead and paste in my client ID and client secret that I just received. And you'll notice that once I click on save, I'll have successful connectivity to my EDI agent server. So once I added all of those things in, click on save, everything is still showing as green. Now, we haven't actually applied any attribute-based access control for my particular client ID. So that's what we're going to start working on now, is how do I actually take these client IDs that folks are registering against my API and start applying proper permissions to them. Now, one thing I want to highlight is once you apply these policies to your API, if I jump back into ACB, you'll notice that even though my connectivity is showing as connected, if I actually open up my MCP servers here and I click on it, because I haven't added any permissions to my client ID, I don't have any tools that are available to me. And similarly, if I provide a client secret that is incorrect, I'll then start getting an authentication attempt failed error. So how do I add in access to the various tools that my EDI agent supports? Well, I'm going to come back into my policies. I'll go back to my attribute-based access control, and here I can start to apply my Cedar policies. To start off, I'm going to go ahead and give my client ID full permissions, so the ability to read and write, so add new partners and pull information back from my partner manager instance. So that's what I'm configuring here. I'll need my client ID, so it'll be permit principal equals client. Then you'll have your client ID. The action is tools call, and then you'll just have resources. So if you want to see that, here's the syntax for full access. And once it applies the policy, it might take a few seconds. You'll see me restarting the server here a few times, but eventually once the policy takes effect, my user and my client ID now has access to all 5 tools as part of the EDI agent template. So full read-write access. Now what I'm going to go ahead and do is modify my client ID permissions so that I only have, let's say, read-only access. So the ability to pull partner profiles, pull certificate information, pull transaction information, but I can't actually do any sort of creation through the EDI agent. Here you'll see me adjusting the syntax. So I'm adding in a conditional, which is essentially saying that my client ID has access to all of the resources as long as the resources fall within this particular group. So here you'll see me pulling in the actual names of the tools that I should have access to. So in this case, the tool would be Get B2B Partner Profile. And then this is essentially an array. So I'll go ahead and add in a new entry for search B2B transactions. And then I'll add in a comma and then another element for the last thing here, which is get B2B partner certificates. And so once I add in that syntax here, I can then click on save. And similar to what we just saw, after a few seconds here, my access should eventually be reduced. So instead of having access to all 5 tools, if I keep clicking on refresh, I now have access to 3 tools, which are the only read-only tools that were assigned to my user. So that's going to wrap up the implementation portion. Hopefully that gave you some good ideas on how you could leverage things like Flex Gateway and Cedar policies to control access for users across your organization once the EDI agent is deployed into your runtime. So with all that being said, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have the opportunity to test out this EDI agent in your environment sometime soon. Thank you.